Hi, Jules. Really warm welcome to One Woman's Journey. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
It's lovely to have you here. So it'd be really great if you could if you're happy, just to tell us a little bit about yourself. That would be great.
I would love to. Well, my name is Julianne Del Cano Kennard. I'm recently married to Rudiger Kennard, and I have had a sort of just a lot of life events, a lot of losses, like many people, many women out there. Uh, I was married quite young and had two beautiful children, and then we divorced about 7 years after that. And I got engaged, and my fiance was in a fatal car accident. And this was shortly, just months before my dad died of inoperable cancer, and then my godfather also of inoperable cancer.
Wow.
And so those were like my first few losses. And then moving forward, I noticed that I just kept that with me, carried that with me in a backpack, held it close, and then was sort of felt myself getting a little bit depressed, and was given a diagnosis of depression, anxiety, PTSD, which I also like to say I carried with me in this backpack. I identified with it. I held it close, and I believed that I was that person, the person that experienced all these losses, um, and just again just moved forward with that. And I got together. I was single for about 6 years, and my ex-husband, who have a really good relationship with, him and his new wife, called me and said, you really need to get out there. If you want to go do something, we'll take the girls for a couple days. And so I said, yeah, I'll go pick up more hours at the hospital in which I worked. And they were like, no, that's not what we meant. We wanted you to go out there and mingle. And so I did. And with this, I guess, with this not knowing who I truly am, and the power that we have, I stepped forward into this relationship, but chose this person like I would choose a car. Um, it didn't bring in smoke. Tires are good engine. This will do. And needless to say, that relationship didn't last, but a beautiful, beautiful son came out of it. So I found myself once again as a single mom. And as my daughters got a little bit older, they were a little bit more independent. But as my son got closer and closer to kindergarten and preschool, the struggles sort of increased. And he was diagnosed with ADD, and in the process of being diagnosed with on the spectrum, I believe, autism. And I say in the process because as my daughters were getting older and my son was getting a little bit more difficult, there were challenges in raising him. I downsized, and I was downsizing for the fact that I needed to be with him more, couldn't work as much, and also his school hours were limited. He was only allowed to go to school for 3 hours a day, and where all the other kids were full days. So it was challenging to pay the bills, and I found myself actually at the very last point living in a tent. And yeah, I got a campsite, and it was a beautiful campsite, and he was just ecstatic because he got to be by the beach and in the woods all the time. But me, I felt like a horrible mom who couldn't provide. And I'm grateful for my ex-husband because my daughters were able to stay with him. And so the state got word of that, and they came to the campsite and picked up my son from me.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that day because I was apologizing to my son, and I said, I'm so sorry. I'm such a horrible mom. And he's like, Mom, this is great. This is great. And he was 6 years old. This is great. We get to be outside. We get to catch frogs and climb trees. But I know you know that us as parents looking in that situation, it's just, it's not where you want to be. So they came and picked him up, and that led into a court battle. And I have to tell you that I just died. I died inside that day. And I found myself not being able to get out of bed for probably 2 weeks, until this little dog taught me the power of thought. Every time I cried, every time I thought about what was happening, I would cry, and it was just a physical pain. And this little dog came up. His name was Baxter. He came up and he would console me. And so in doing so, I was in the moment. I was releasing the thoughts that I was hanging on to about me being such a horrible mom and an inadequate provider, that I started to console the dog, and I noticed I started to feel better. And there was a shift, Rachel. Something happened. I started to realize that my son wasn't being taken away from me over and over again. And I am not an inadequate mom, and I am not an insufficient provider. I was an excellent mom. And so moving forward, I felt myself just sort of shift to what I like to call a different platform, and another platform from which I got to see with clear eyes. It's almost like putting on glasses. And I didn't know what was happening, but before you know it, I was still homeless. I was living in my car, but I was interviewing for this amazing position. And I was elated that I could see movement. I could see creative potential. I was connecting with the wisdom from within. And I got the position. I got offered a great position. And then an hour later, I got a phone call that my 18-year-old daughter was in a fatal car accident. And I screamed, and I don't know, something happened. I call it a transition, because the love that I was feeling, the love that I had, the knowing of who we truly are, I felt so connected to that wisdom, to that human spirit. I guess what the principles call mind. I felt so connected to that I didn't feel a loss. I felt my daughter coming towards me. There was just a transition from physical to non-physical. And so I went back, and I was sitting in the front yard of my ex-husband and his wife's house, and I saw people that they were just screaming and crying in pain, but yet I felt okay, because the love that I had for my daughter, it's still there. Love is love, and it's still there. Nobody could ever take the memories, and nobody could ever take away the fact that I was her mom. I got to raise her. I felt a sense of honor. I felt a sense of, I did this. I raised this beautiful, beautiful girl, these beautiful children. And so I spoke at the memorial, but not as a grieving mom, Rachel, as somebody who wanted to remind everyone to uncover and look within. Because when we start reaching outward and believing our thoughts and holding them close in what I like to call a backpack, it weighs us down. And almost like we get pinched off from the wisdom that we have within. And yeah, I did that. And people were saying that I was in shock, and they were saying that I was going to fall, but I never did. And I couldn't explain it. I had about thousands and thousands of moms, 2,000, hundreds and hundreds, thousands, but a couple thousand moms and just sisters and dads contact me that have had losses in their life. And so I started talking to them, and with what I used to like to call word vomit, because these words just come out. And somebody, when I came to Hawaii and explained this to a 3 principles practitioner, she said, that's wisdom. That's wisdom coming through. And so I came to Hawaii and after Yosemite, and I just like to say I followed a feeling here. I felt I was doing what I needed to do. It just felt right. And I followed that feeling all the way into meeting Rudy. And it wasn't until I watched his animations that I felt okay. Like there was still a question, like maybe I am in denial, but that thought would just pass through. So it was solidifying. The principles were solidifying and verifying and confirming that yes, we are okay. We are always okay. And what they're pointing to is that innate intelligence that's with us forever. It never leaves us. Sometimes it may get covered up, but it never ever leaves. So
wow. So it sounds like you were saying, that you took on some of these labels, some of these identities about you are the person that loses others, and you are the person with the depression and the post-traumatic stress, and sort of take those labels and put them on your backpack, and carry those things around with you. Right. Which is what we do, isn't it? We grab onto identities and labels and belief that, well, this must mean that I'm this type of person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you went on through what every mother will know must be the most painful and horrendous circumstances, both with your son and then your daughter. And yet you describe, even without knowing anything about the principles, you describe a wisdom and knowing and understanding without the words necessarily.
I like to say that that's proof that what the principles point to is real. I like to say that I'm proof of that because I didn't know. People thought I was crazy, but I just kept following that feeling, that wisdom from within, that innate intelligence. And I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon Rudy and those beautiful animations because it verified. And then it's like opening these curtains to this whole community that know and look. I was like, thank you so much. I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
So your resilience and your knowing, where, how would you describe that in those extreme times of loss?
Well, it happened shortly after Seth. I just noticed that I like to say these feelings started to percolate up. I started to feel better with that very smart dog who taught me the power of thought. And they just started to feel better. And then I remember looking at my hands and I am okay. I'm okay. It's not happening over and over again. It happened once. I am okay in this very moment. I am perfectly fine. And then I began to realize I'm always okay. I'm not broken. I'm not those diagnoses. And something interesting also, I always forget to add, I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy back then.
Wow.
It's not something that I live within. And I was recently, went in about a year ago here in Hawaii, and he questioned if I was misdiagnosed because it almost like my cardiac reversed. It was an enlargement of the heart, and now my heart is normal size.
Wow.
But I just can't tell you enough of how grateful I am for the principles and what they point to and the truth, our truth.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what you've been through and how you are today, I I just think women will just find that extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I certainly find it extraordinary. You know, I have daughters too, and you know, we all go through these life's challenges, don't we? But wow.
And you're not broken, and you're never alone. Never alone. I know sometimes you feel like you just have no one, but you're never alone. And if we share the load, it lightens it for others.
Mm.
Beauty in the connection that we all possess. The connection is always there.
And it's for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's every single one of us.
Every single one of us possess that innate intelligence, who we are. It's what we're made of. Sometimes it just gets covered up. It just gets pinched off a little. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thanks so much for having the courage to, you know, to share with us. I know it's just going to help so many women. And just tell us a little bit about what you're up to now with Rudy, and because I know you just launched your new website. So tell us a little bit about that.
We did. We launched our new website. It's called. You can find us at innateevolution.com. 2 E sounds innateevolution.com, and we amalgamated the Three Principles movies onto our site for financial reasons, just because the website was going to take so much money to redo. Put them both together and just paid for one website. And we are just sharing with the world this beautiful truth, hoping to bring communities together and pointing them back to them, back to themselves. That's where it all begins. Everything begins in the non-physical. Everything begins inside of you. And that's just what we do. We're here in Hawaii, and you can contact either of us. We'd love to talk. We've got movies. We've got interviews. We have about 300 brand new interviews that we're releasing twice monthly.
It's such a fantastic resource, isn't it, for people wanting to find out more. Find out a bit more about the principles, about the wisdom within, you know, what's there for all of us.
Right.
And how do you see the people that you work with, how do you see them sort of change in front of you?
Oh my gosh, I love it. They just, I love that they say, I'm not broken. I am not those thoughts. I am, you know, it's just, and then we cry. There's a lot of tears, and, and I jump up and down and clap. And oh my goodness, we had somebody who she didn't leave her house for 22 years.
Wow.
And after our resilience weekend, she went out for a bike ride. And then she messaged us and said that she's been going every single day, and she has these goals, these landmarks within her city.
Oh, wow.
To which she wants to reach. And she almost made it to the gym, but then she turned around and came back, and she's just, we just love her. And just
inside for 22 years.
Scared to leave her house.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the impact, isn't it?
It is the impact, and it comes from within, and it's not anything you seek outwardly. It's just the wisdom. It's that innate intelligence that we all possess. It's there.
It's
always there.
Yeah. It's there, and it's there for all of us.
Yeah.
Jules, thanks so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and I know our followers will really benefit from what you've had to share today. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay.